I woke up to the sound of coffee brewing. Not unusual, except Ashley never made coffee first. Not for herself, not for me. But there it was, the faint bubbling hiss of the machine, the smell of strong roast creeping under the bedroom door like it had something to confess. I lay there a moment, eyes open, pulse steady but low, and listened. A chair scraped in the kitchen. Her voice murmured something low and sugary, then a short laugh, soft, unfamiliar, practiced. That laugh didn't belong in our kitchen. I sat up, waited. Nothing. Silence. Then the front door closed, quiet but definite, like a secret slipping away. I moved fast, tossed on a hoodie, didn't even bother with socks. The house was spotless, untouched, the way it always looked lately. Ashley had been meticulous the past few weeks, almost like she was preparing it for someone else to live in. The only trace left behind was a lipstick-stained mug in the sink, hers, but next to it, a second cup. Clean, but wet inside. I ran a finger over the rim. Warm. I didn't say a word when she came back an hour later. She acted like nothing had happened. No apology, no explanation. I asked where she'd been. She blinked at me, cool as marble, and said, took a walk. Wanted air. At 6 in the morning? I didn't push. Not then. I knew something was off, but I also knew how she played the game. The less you accused, the more she thought you believed. And I needed her to believe I was still the dumb, trusting husband. 3 nights later, she stopped sleeping in the bed. Claimed I snored too loud, said she was tired of tossing and turning. I nodded, pretended to buy it, and that night I stayed up, sitting in the living room in the dark. She didn't know I was there when she crept past me toward the door, shoes in hand. She moved like a burglar, only she was robbing me. She slipped outside and didn't come back for hours. Still, I waited. I kept my mouth shut and started observing. I tracked every shift in her routine, every late-night shower, every call she took facing the wall. I noticed her new passwords, the way her phone never left her hand, how she flinched if I got too close while she was texting. I didn't need to snoop. Her behavior screamed. But the morning that changed everything wasn't dramatic. There wasn't a smoking gun or some stranger's underwear under our couch. It was a Tuesday. I made her toast. I offered her her favorite orange juice. She pushed the plate away like I'd served her poison, looked me straight in the face, and said, "Do you always have to be here?" That sentence, it hit harder than anything physical could. Not what she said, but how she said it. Annoyed. Disgusted. Like my presence was choking her. I didn't reply. I just stood there, letting the silence stretch between us. She didn't fill it. She just grabbed her purse and walked out, no glance back. She left her iPad behind. And something about that felt intentional. Almost like she wanted me to find what was inside. Or maybe she just stopped caring. Maybe she wanted to be caught because lies are heavy and hers were dragging her down. I told myself not to look. I told myself if I checked, there'd be no going back. But I opened it. And what I found wasn't just messages. It was another life. A mirror world where I didn't exist. A gallery of her and someone else. Laughing in cafes. Curled up in rooms I didn't recognize. Texts that painted me as pathetic, boring, oblivious. He had a name. Ryan. He wrote her poems and called her Fireheart. She sent him photos she never let me take. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry at first. I just stared. At one photo, her in a dress I'd bought for our anniversary, sitting on a hotel bed, legs tucked under her, captioned, "Thinking of you, not me, him." That was the moment something inside me went still. A kind of stillness that doesn't come from peace but from clarity. From seeing the truth for what it is and knowing it's over. And still, she came home that night, kissed me on the cheek like we were strangers on an elevator, and said, "You're quiet today." I smiled. Just thinking. She didn't ask what about. She never wanted real answers anyway. But I had already decided. Tomorrow, I'd disappear from her world just as quietly as she disappeared from mine. She got home late the next evening. No excuse. No apology. Just dumped her keys on the counter like she lived alone. Her coat reeked of some cologne I didn't recognize, spicy, musky, not the kind I wear. She didn't notice the way I watched her as she passed me in the hallway. Or maybe she did, and she just didn't care. "Going to shower," she said, barely looking at me. I followed her with my eyes, calm on the outside, every thought inside me screaming. But I didn't move. I waited until the water started running. Then I took her phone from her purse. Locked. Of course. But I had already watched her type in the code a week ago when she thought I was asleep. 0927. Ryan's birthday. The phone opened. I had minutes at best. Messages. Dozens. All recent. She'd renamed him in her contacts. He was now Alicia. Clever. But not clever enough. I opened the thread. There they were. Plans to meet, dirty inside jokes. Complaints about me. Lists of restaurants they wanted to try together. Wish you were here instead of him. He cooked again tonight. But I'm dying. Soon, baby. Just be patient. I'm handling it. She thought she was handling it. Like I was some temporary inconvenience. A hurdle between her and her shiny new life. She was counting down days to my expiration date. I closed the phone, put it back in her bag exactly how I found it. Then I waited. She came out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, hair dripping, scrolling through the same phone like it was her oxygen. I watched her face. No sign she noticed anything. She was that confident, that careless. And then, for the first time in weeks, I spoke with intention. Who's Ryan? I asked like I was asking about the weather. Her head jerked up. That towel of confidence she wore so tightly it slipped fast. Her eyes didn't blink. Who? I said, who's Ryan? Silence. She stared at me, calculating. A flicker of panic quickly smothered by something colder. You went through my phone, she said, tone sharp, like I was the criminal. Like I had crossed the line. I asked you a question, I replied. Calm. Flat. Empty. She scoffed. Laughed almost. A little shake of the head. So what, now you're spying on me? That's what this has come to. I didn't look away. Who is he? She rolled her eyes like I was a child throwing a tantrum. He's a friend. I nodded slowly. That's what you call it now? She dropped the towel, walked to the dresser, completely unfazed, like we weren't having the most important conversation of our marriage. You're being dramatic, she muttered, pulling on leggings. If you had a problem, you could have just said something instead of playing detective. You've been seeing him for months. I haven't done anything, she snapped, suddenly spinning toward me. And even if I had, look at us. We haven't been okay in forever. You're boring. You think making toast and asking how my day was is enough. That was it? Not denial. Not even guilt. Just venom. She didn't even want to defend herself. She wanted to blame me. So it's my fault? I said, stepping closer. You cheated because I made toast? She smirked. You want the truth? Fine. I haven't loved you in years. I stayed because it was comfortable. But you? You don't excite me. You don't challenge me. You don't scare me. Ryan does. There it was. The switch flipped. The truth bleeding out of her like rot from a cracked wall. She wasn't sorry. She was free. I nodded again, slower this time. My chest felt hollow. Not broken, emptied. And I said one thing. Just one. I hope he breaks you. She paused. That line, it cut. I saw it in the way her lip curled just for a second. But she turned away and didn't respond. Just grabbed her phone, sat on the bed, and started texting. Probably him. That was the night I packed a bag. Tomorrow, she'd wake up and I'd be gone. No yelling. No notes. Just silence. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't even lay down. I sat in the armchair across from the bed, my bag beside me, watching her as she dozed off like she hadn't burned our entire marriage to the ground a few hours earlier. Her breathing was steady, her face calm, peaceful even. I wondered if she ever felt anything at all. Or if it was all just masks she wore and mine had stopped fitting her years ago. At 5:04 a.m. I stood up and walked into the kitchen. The coffee machine started hissing. She didn't stir. I moved like a shadow, no lights, no noise. I grabbed what I needed from the drawer, my passport, the backup debit card she didn't know about, and the folded piece of paper I had hidden behind the cereal box. A list of things I was taking with me. It wasn't long. Wallet, laptop, my grandfather's watch, the leather journal I hadn't written in since we got married. Everything else could rot here with her. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter right beside her favorite mug. The same one she used the morning I heard her giggle for someone else. Then I walked out the door and didn't look back. But the universe apparently wasn't done with me yet. Because 10 minutes later, while I was sitting in my car outside a cheap motel on the edge of town, trying to remember how to breathe like a man who still had a future, my phone lit up. It was a text from her. One line. Where are you? I didn't answer. Another ping. Then another. This isn't funny. What are you doing? Ethan, seriously. You're acting crazy. The last one made me laugh. Not out loud, but that short, bitter kind of laugh that tastes like metal. I was acting crazy? An hour passed. I checked in under a fake name. Slept for maybe 20 minutes before the knock came. It wasn't her. It was a cop. Apparently, she'd called the police. Told them I disappeared, said I might have been unstable, that I left without warning. He asked me if I was all right, if I needed someone to talk to. I told him I was fine. I showed him my ID, said I just needed some space. The officer nodded, said she seemed worried. Said I should give her a call, let her know I was safe. Worried. The same woman who couldn't be bothered to say goodnight for weeks, who sneered when I made her breakfast, who told another man I was a walking corpse, worried. I didn't call her. But I sent one final text. I'm not missing. I'm done. She didn't reply. But 3 hours later, a photo popped up from an unknown number. No message. Just the image. It was of Ashley and Ryan. Sitting in our living room. Drinking wine. On my couch. Her legs on his lap. His arm around her shoulders. Both smiling like they'd won something. Like my exit was a clean sweep for their fantasy. It was bait. I knew it. Either from her or from him. Some smug move to push me over the edge. But they didn't realize something crucial: you can't hurt a man who's already walked through the fire. That photo didn't break me. It sealed something shut. And once something's sealed, it can't be reopened. Not by her. Not by him. Not by anyone. The next few days passed in fragments. Motel ceilings, cold showers, vending machine dinners, and silence thick enough to choke on. I didn't tell anyone where I was, not my brother, not my best friend, not even my boss. I let the world think I had vanished, and in a way I had. The version of me that built a life with her, that took vows seriously, that bought lilies every anniversary because she once said they made her feel like a queen, that man had died. Quietly. Alone. On the 4th day, I got a call from her sister. Lily. I stared at the screen for a full minute before answering. Ethan, she said, her voice low, cautious. What the hell is going on? I didn't reply. I know something happened. Ashley's acting weird. She told Mom you bailed like a coward. But I saw her yesterday. She's off. Smiling too much. Laughing like a person trying not to scream. Still, I said nothing. Then Lily dropped the hammer. She told Ryan to move in. I laughed. Short, sharp, stunned. Not because I didn't believe it, but because of how fast it happened. For days. 4. That's all it took for her to slide someone else into my life like I was a placeholder in my own home. She didn't even change the sheets, Lily added. I asked her. She said, why bother? It's just a bed. Just a bed. That was the moment something inside me didn't just crack, it shifted. Not from sadness. Not from anger. From resolve. She wanted to erase me? Fine. I'd make sure she remembered me in every corner of that house. I drove back that night. Not to confront. Not to beg. I had a key. She hadn't changed the locks yet. Probably thought I was too broken to ever come back. Or maybe she liked the idea of me lingering on the edges like a ghost. The house was dark when I arrived. Her car in the driveway. His wasn't there. Perfect. I let myself in. Walked through the kitchen. Everything was different. New wine glasses. Different rugs. Some of my photos gone. But not all. A few still hung crookedly like she hadn't had time to finish gutting the place. I went straight to the bedroom. The sheets? Ours. The duvet I bought her for Christmas? Still there. I didn't touch anything. Didn't trash the place. I wasn't here for theatrics. I was here to reclaim a sliver of myself. I went to the closet and pulled out the journal. The one she never knew about. Leather-bound. Heavy. I hadn't written in it in years. I placed it on the bed. Opened it to a blank page. And I wrote. Not a letter. Not a threat. Just the story. Everything. What I saw. What I knew. How I felt. I wrote like I was bleeding. 10 pages. Sharp. Clear. No anger, just reality stripped and raw. When I was done, I left it on her pillow. The last thing I'd ever leave her. Then I walked to the hallway and grabbed the box of old photos we kept under the stairs. Us at prom. Our wedding day. The trip to the cabin. Smiling. Kissing. All lies now. I took a handful. Stuffed them into my bag. and left the rest. Let her burn them. Let him help. As I was walking out, I heard a voice behind me. "What the hell are you doing here, Ryan?" He stood in the doorway, grocery bags in his arms, surprise hardening into something cocky. I didn't flinch, just looked at him, then back at the house. "You moved in fast." He dropped the bags. "She told me you were gone." "I am." "Then why are you here?" I stepped past him slow, calm, to remind her of everything she's pretending didn't happen. He opened his mouth to reply, but I didn't let him. I turned once before I got in my car. "She's not who you think she is." He laughed. "Yeah, and you were just perfect, right?" "No," I said, but I never lied to her about loving her. And with that I left. Again. But this time I didn't feel empty. I felt like I'd just pulled my heart from a house fire. And it was still beating point. 2 days later, I got an email. Not a call. Not a text. An email. Formal, clipped, like we were business associates negotiating a merger. Subject, "Let's talk." I didn't open it right away. I stared at the notification as it sat there, smug and patient like her. When I finally read it, it wasn't long. "I read your journal. You really think you're some kind of martyr? You were checked out long before Ryan showed up. Maybe if you'd been half as passionate with me as you are with that pen, we wouldn't be here. I'm not the villain. You were just asleep. No greeting. No goodbye. Just blame." I didn't respond. She couldn't leave it there. The next message came the same night from a burner number. She'd blocked me after I left, but I guess the silence wasn't sitting well with her anymore. "You made me out to be a monster. You have no idea what I've been through. You think you're the only one hurt?" That's when I realized she hadn't read the journal. Not really. She saw words and filtered them through her own self-made version of events. She wasn't reading me. She never had. I stayed silent. The next morning, the messages turned. "I miss you. This doesn't feel real. Can we meet? Just once." She was unraveling. And not because she wanted me back. No, she missed control. But the damage was done. And here's where the story flips again. Because the next person to reach out wasn't her. It was Ryan. He found my email, God knows how, and sent me a message that read more like a man trying to figure out what kind of landmine he'd just stepped on. Subject line, "I think I made a mistake." The body of the email? "You were right. She's not who I thought she was. It's been a week and she's already turned cold. She talks about you more than she talks to me. I think she used us both. I don't even know what to believe anymore." For a second, I felt it. That flicker of vindication. The kind that makes you sit back and exhale through your nose. But it didn't last. Because that wasn't what I wanted. I didn't need him to suffer. I didn't need him to realize she was never capable of loyalty. I just wanted peace. And I was starting to see the path to it. The next day, I filed for divorce. No warning. No announcement. Just paperwork. Neat. Final. She found out through her lawyer. And that's when the real performance started. Suddenly she was calling, blocking and unblocking, sending voicemails that started calm and ended in rage. "You're throwing everything away. I thought you were better than this. You're really gonna let Ryan win? You're abandoning me." Each one more desperate than the last. And in every message, one thing was clear: she still believed I owed her something. But she didn't understand I was already gone. Not physically. Not legally yet. But something had clicked off inside me the moment I saw her face that night she chose him. It wasn't jealousy or heartbreak. It was release. The kind of release that only comes when you've carried someone on your back for years and you finally let them slide off. She didn't break me. She revealed me. Now it was time to build the version of myself that didn't need to beg for love or shrink to be forgiven or explain why I wasn't enough. She'd taken pieces of me. But I had the blueprint. And this time I built something no one could touch. The first week after filing, silence returned, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This one didn't ache. It didn't crawl under my skin. Felt clean, like standing in an empty room after the furniture's been taken out, walls stripped bare, and realizing the echo is your own voice coming back to you. I hadn't heard myself in so long. Then her mother called me. Now, this woman never liked me. Not even in the early days. She was cold in a silk kind of way, nice to your face, but every compliment wrapped in poison. But now, Now she was panicked. "Ethan," she said, "I don't know what Ashley told you, but she's not well. She's saying things that don't make sense. One minute she's sobbing, the next she's blaming everyone. She told me you were spying on her. She said you manipulated her into thinking you were gone for good, and now she's abandoned." Her words, not mine. I didn't know how to answer. Not because I didn't have the words, but because I didn't care what her mother thought anymore. This wasn't about their family. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a reckoning. "She's not okay," her mom pressed. "She's unstable." That word. Unstable. Funny. That's what Ashley had told the cops about me. I let her mom finish, thanked her, and hung up. Then I turned my phone off and threw it in the drawer. Later that night, I met with my lawyer, Claire. Sharp, blunt, no nonsense. She'd been through this 100 times, but even she raised an eyebrow at the speed of everything. "You sure you want to go through with this without any kind of negotiation?" she asked. "You could get more. Spousal support, maybe a stake in the property." "She'll fight. She can keep the house," I said. "I want nothing from her. Just make it clean." Claire paused. "You're not angry?" I said. "Now I'm done." And I meant it. There was no revenge in me anymore. No desire to win. The real victory was in walking away without dragging my soul behind me. But Ashley couldn't let that happen. She needed the drama, the fight, the chaos. That's who she was underneath the perfume and perfect eyeliner. She was noise dressed as elegance. 2 days later, I got a knock on my door. It was her. No warning, no call, just her. She looked different, less polished. Her hair messy, eyes puffy, wearing the same hoodie she used to sleep in when she actually wanted to be next to me. "Can we talk?" she asked. I opened the door halfway. "No more. You've said enough." She leaned on the frame, her voice trembling with just enough calculated tremor. "I don't want this to end like this. Not with silence. Not with you hating me." "I don't hate you," I said. "That's the problem. Hating you would make this easier." She didn't expect that. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked past me into the apartment like she was trying to remember where she used to exist. "It wasn't just about Ryan," she said. "It was everything. The boredom. The routine." I felt dead inside. I didn't flinch. "So you lit everything on fire instead." "I needed to feel something," she whispered. And there it was. The deepest truth she'd ever offered. Not for my sake, but hers. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even remorseful. She was just trying to rewrite the ending so she wouldn't be the villain in her own story. "You don't miss me," I said. "You miss the version of yourself you got to be when I loved you." Silence. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She looked at me like I had slapped her without touching her. And then she left. No goodbye. No closure. Just her walking away, this time without power, without control, without me. And I didn't watch her go. 3 weeks passed. Not a word. No calls. No texts. No late-night emails or surprise visits. It was like she'd finally accepted the narrative had changed and she wasn't the one writing it anymore. I didn't trust the peace. I knew her well enough to understand that silence, for her, wasn't surrender, it was strategy. She was regrouping. Rearranging her image. Shaping a new version of herself to offer the world. And I knew what was coming next. Reputation control. It started subtly. Mutual friends stopped reaching out. A couple of old colleagues I used to grab drinks with would take hours to respond if they replied at all. My cousin, who always liked her more than she liked me, posted a photo at brunch with her. Caption: "Surround yourself with strong women who rise." I stared at that photo longer than I should have. Not because I missed her, but because I saw it for what it was, the slow, calculated reinvention of her public character. She wasn't content with escape. She wanted vindication. She needed people to believe she was the one who got hurt. That I was the cold one, the distant one, the emotionally unavailable husband who never really saw her. And Ryan? Gone. Deleted. Scrubbed. Like he was a mistake she'd already paid for. A few weeks later, word reached me from Lily again, her sister, the only one still honest enough to speak without pretense. She texted late one night, "Just so you know, she's telling people you had an emotional affair. That you had checked out and started talking to some girl at work. Says she found messages. Says that's why things fell apart." I almost laughed. Almost. There had never been anyone else. Never a message, never a moment, never a second where I'd looked outside the marriage. I was all in until the floor gave way. And now she was dragging ghosts into it, dressing them up as reasons. I didn't reply. Lily sent another text a minute later. She's not stable. She's spiraling, Ethan. She's trying to rewrite the whole thing like it was a mutual breakdown. You need to protect yourself. I already was. I had started therapy. Twice a week. No couches, no incense, no soft-spoken cliches. Just me, a room, and someone who didn't flinch when I said the truth out loud. I told her everything. About the silence. About Ryan. About the journal. About the way Ashley could weaponize love and still smile through it. My therapist never judged. Never told me I was wrong for loving her. But she said something that stuck. She needed you small so she could feel big. Now that you're standing up, she's shrinking. And she'll claw at anyone to stretch herself back out. Exactly. And the moment that brought it all home? A letter. Not digital. Not typed. Handwritten. Dropped into my mailbox. Folded with precision. Like something sacred. Inside was one page. Neat handwriting. A mix of ink smudges and perfume. I'm sorry for hurting you. But I don't regret anything. I needed to find myself even if it meant losing you. You weren't the man I wanted anymore. And I couldn't keep pretending you were. Maybe one day you'll understand. Maybe one day you'll thank me. There it was. Not an apology. A self-eulogy. She wasn't mourning us. She was just justifying the kill. I burned the letter that night in the sink. Watched every word curl into ash. Then I opened my laptop and wrote the first sentence in my journal since she left. I survived her. It was a Thursday afternoon when I ran into her again. I wasn't expecting it, hadn't prepared for it. I was at the bookstore of all places, the quiet one on 8th with the creaky floors and the worn leather chairs in the back. I'd gone there for a distraction, maybe a new novel, something that had nothing to do with love, or loss, or betrayal. Something with swords and dragons, maybe. Magic. Clean lines between good and evil. But life doesn't wait for closure to feel finished. I turned a corner in the fiction aisle and there she was. Ashley. Hair shorter. Wearing that green jacket I once bought her in Chicago. A coffee in one hand, a book in the other. And beside her, not Ryan. Someone new. You know the jolt you expect to feel in these moments? That stomach drop, chest-tightening cinematic punch? Nothing. No spike in my pulse. No heat behind the eyes. Just a dull, distant sense of watching someone I used to know play house with another stranger. She saw me before I could slip away. Froze. Her smile faltered, but she recovered fast. Always did. Ethan, she said, stepping forward, her voice warm, rehearsed. Hey. Wow. I nodded. Hey. The guy with her, tall, clean-shaven, wearing a look that said, "Is this the ex?" Stayed quiet. She didn't introduce him. There was a pause. She studied my face like she was searching for a bruise, some kind of wound that would prove she still mattered. You look good, she said finally, cautiously. Thanks, I replied. So do you. Lie. She didn't look bad. But there was a tension behind her eyes, something stretched too tight beneath her skin. Like she was still holding her breath from a life she couldn't exhale from. You been okay? She asked. Yeah. I said. Better than I thought I'd be. Another pause. She nodded, slowly. Then her smile slipped for real this time. I heard you're writing again. Of course she had. Small town. Mutual friends. Whispers. She always hated how much I loved writing, called it emotional navel-gazing. Once when she was drunk. Yeah. I said. Feels good. Good. She said. But it sounded like the word tasted bitter. And then she said the thing I didn't expect. I'm sorry it ended like that. I waited for more. Some qualifier. Some but. Some need to shift the weight again. But there wasn't one. I nodded. Me too. And that was it. She didn't ask about the divorce. Didn't mention the house. Didn't bring up Ryan or the journal or the accusations. Nothing. Because deep down, she knew there was no version of this where she came out clean. She had rewritten the story for everyone else. But she knew I'd kept the original. She turned to go, and I let her. No dramatic goodbye. No lingering look. Just two people who once promised forever, now strangers in a bookstore, pretending they'd both come out the other side better. As I left, I glanced back once. The new guy was looking at her like she hung the stars. I knew that look. I also knew how fast it faded. And for the first time since she left, I didn't feel like the man who lost everything. I felt like the man who escaped. 3 months after that bookstore run-in, I got an invitation. A thick cream-colored envelope, hand-addressed, sealed with a wax stamp. First, I thought it was a joke. Who even sends mail like that anymore? But when I flipped it over and saw her name, Ashley, my jaw clenched on instinct. Inside was a card. Printed. Elegant. Cold. You are cordially invited to celebrate the grand opening of Ashley Hale Interiors. A launch party for her new design firm. She'd used her maiden name, Hale, like the last 10 years hadn't happened. The RSVP link was tucked into the corner, almost like an afterthought. No personal note, no message, just a manufactured formality, designed less to invite me and more to remind me. She'd moved on, reinvented, rebranded. I almost threw it out. Almost. But curiosity is a strange thing. So I clicked the link. Not to RSVP, just to look. And there she was, plastered across the homepage, posed in a sunlit loft with soft gray walls, arms crossed, half smiling at the camera like a politician. Her bio was as hollow as I expected, mentions of her lifelong passion for beauty and transformation, nods to her resilience and strength, and a carefully curated version of her story that painted her as a phoenix. Rising from ashes, she said herself. Not one word about what came before. Not one crack in the porcelain. That was her final performance. And I was her ghost, invited not as a guest, but as a witness. A few days later, I saw the photos online. The party looked expensive. Champagne, gold-accented decor, rows of strangers clapping while she gave a speech under a spotlight. Her hair in waves, her smile sharpened to a blade. And in one photo right in the background was Ryan. Not by her side. Not even near her. He looked misplaced. Out of sync. The accessory she'd forgotten to return. Later that night, my phone buzzed. Not her. Not him. Lily again. She sent a single message. Did you see it? I replied, yeah. She sent back a photo. A candid, blurry shot she'd taken at the event. Ashley at the bar, alone, staring at her drink. No one around her. Everyone else in clusters, mingling. And her? Distant. Detached. The queen without a court. She got what she wanted, Lily wrote. But she still looks lost. I stared at the image for a long time. Because in that moment I realized something that hadn't fully sunk in before. She hadn't replaced me. She'd replaced the idea of me. The stable one. The constant. The one who would always orbit her gravity. And when I stopped spinning around her, the entire system collapsed. Now she stood in the ruins with a glass of champagne and a hollow crown, convincing everyone it was a palace. That was the difference between us. I had been shattered, but I rebuilt. She had just redecorated the rubble. And no invitation, no headline, no hand-picked lighting could change that. It was a Sunday morning, quiet, gray, the kind of sky that doesn't promise anything. I was sitting by the window with a cup of black coffee and a notebook in my lap, half filled with thoughts I wasn't sure were poems or confessions. I wasn't writing about her anymore. Not directly. But her shadow lingered in the margins. Then came the final message. One line. One last grasp at meaning. Do you ever think we could have made it if we'd met later? I didn't respond. I didn't even consider it. Because that sentence, like everything she gave, wasn't about us. It was about her, about reframing the story, softening the wreckage. A tidy bow on a war zone. But I already knew how the story ended. For weeks, my wife stayed silent. Not a word, not a glance. Then one morning, I finally had enough and walked away. And what came after was not a return, not a revelation, it was rebirth. I kept the journal. I kept the photos, not to remember her, but to remember who I was and how far I'd come. Some nights I flipped through them like a survivor reading old newspaper clippings of the disaster he lived through. The love I gave her, it wasn't wasted. taught me what I deserved. It taught me that being loyal to the wrong person is how you learn to become loyal to yourself. So no, I never replied to that message. Not because I was bitter, but because peace doesn't explain itself. I moved to a new place. Not far, but far enough. New walls, new windows. I started hosting dinners. Small ones, real ones. People who laughed without measuring it. People who stayed until the dishes were cold and the music low and the words got soft. I found joy again in silence, in slowness, in not needing to be anyone's savior. I stopped waiting for closure, because closure is just the decision to stop bleeding over someone who never asked you to heal. I saw her one last time, months later, at a park. She was walking alone, looking at her phone, the world passing by unnoticed. She didn't see me, and for the first time since everything ended, I didn't feel like a ghost or a victim or even a survivor. I felt whole, not because I'd won, not because she lost, but because I finally understood. She was never the ending to my story. She was just the plot twist.